Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you, man?
Good. I'm actually excited to talk about a bunch of gaming stuff because it's not all Activision stuff. and yeah, before we get into all the gaming stuff, as people are coming into the show, a few weeks ago when Mr. Musk, the Elon dude, bought Twitter, a lot of people freaked out thinking that Twitter was going to go away, myself included. Someone, or a lot of people would call that an overreaction. Yeah, just a bit. People overreacted. And so people start trying to find these alternatives, right? And, Mastodon came up in the conversation. Hive, Aaron Greenberg was posting these links to them. And I've been posting kind of regularly on those social media platforms as well. And well, Hive went offline for 2 days to do some, security updates and stuff. And as it looks like, Twitter's fine now. The advertisers are coming back. Apple's all good with, Elon and all that stuff. Well, it turns out, I've noticed no one else is posting on those two apps anymore. Like Aaron Greenberg has stopped. Like most people have stopped. I've went to the feeds on both. Literally dead. No one's posting anything at all. and yeah, it looks like the whole Twitter thing was a bit of an overreaction. And yeah, Logan, have you noticed as well, like the freak out to Twitter and just everyone stopped using those apps?
Yeah, there's always a. Twitter seems to be this giant, just conglomerate of emotions, and people just are on a hair trigger about everything. Like something that shouldn't really be that big of a deal gets blown up, and then sometimes some stuff that should be a big deal kind of just gets swept aside, and people just don't talk about for various reasons. But yeah, it was. I thought it was hilarious. I wasn't gonna leave Twitter unless that ship literally crashed and burned, obliterated, just ceased to exist. Like I was gonna stick with Twitter, and looks like yeah, just a massive overreaction by some people that had motivations to try to make things look a certain way. Whatever your leanings are, one way or another, on spectrums of stuff, it has operated largely the same pre and post purchase. So to me, it's basically the same as it was before he got it. My interactions, my experience on there. So yeah, I made a Hive account because it seemed like the least complicated, somewhat alternative Twitter, and it's kind of cool. But yeah, it's very dead. And then Mastodon, like, dude, I've already had calculus and all this other crap. I don't want to have to deal with that. Just something this blatantly convoluted. I'm like, yeah, I'll pass. Like, if it's social media or nothing and it has to be that, I'll just pass. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, like as people are freaking out, the whole Mastodon process, like gamers don't really want to do a lot when it comes to like getting something done. We complain about things like fetch quests in games, and Mastodon was essentially just a really weird fetch quest, like having to pick a server and all that stuff. And the gaming community, like I follow a lot of developers, and people were like struggling, wanting to find something that was could be considered a Twitter alternative. Because look, I'll put it out there, I think Twitter is the best social media. I don't care about Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, all that stuff. Twitter's where it's at. That's where the community's at. That's where people talk about gaming. Like that's where the news and everyone talks about it. Video game leaks happen on Twitter, which we'll be talking about later in the show. Hint, hint, Star Wars. But yeah, those are the two apps now. Hive and Mastodon, basically dead. It was about to happen, but yeah, it was going to happen eventually. But hey, I'm happy that everyone on Twitter is back to normal. And yeah, people will continue to promote those sites. I will say this, Hive was impressive that two people made that app. So, like, if they can continue to grow it, I'll still post on there regularly. But, like, the fact I've been refreshing the page and no one in my feed has posted in about 4 or 5 days, it's like, it says it all. But yeah, that's it about social media apps. Uh, you know, we'll just get straight into the gaming topics. But before we do, if everyone's enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And yeah, we'll just get into the show. So, gaming. Now, for the past week, we've actually had a wide range of gaming news topics, and it's been all over the place. And it's actually been interesting to watch. And we got to talk about Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring came out at the beginning of the year. A lot of people think it's going to sweep up at the Game Awards. I think it will. And deservingly so. It's a brilliant game. It's a masterpiece. And, ever since I finished, I've been wanting to play New Game Plus. And I've just been putting it off, hoping for DLC. Well, today, it was announced that we are getting DLC. Tomorrow. And it's free. It's basically PvP in the Colosseums. Like, throughout the land in Elden Ring, I think there's about 3 Colosseums that you couldn't even enter. So everyone kind of guessed that, okay, eventually we're going to get to go inside and battle. And even though this isn't the DLC that people were expecting, with the Game Awards around the corner, a lot of people are thinking that maybe this is like a layup to brand new story-related DLC with new bosses and all that stuff, because people did a deep dive into the files about a month and a half ago and found like new location names that aren't even in the game. And if you go to the map in the game, there's clouds covering certain parts of the ocean which kind of look out of place. And it kind of looks to me that we're going to see a Game Awards announcement for proper story-based DLC for Elden Ring. Logan, what do you think? Because I know you loved Elden Ring as well.
Yeah, I always kind of figured that they were going to do something first with the arenas, because I visited them. There were like 2 or 3 of them. I remember there was one near that bridge, near that first major castle you go to. Then I know there was one hidden behind that giant pot warrior guy in Caelid. And then there was another one in the Ashen City towards the very end, where you had to, climb around and get to it. But it seems a no-brainer and a way to get some multiplayer in there, some competitive, maybe have some rewards, maybe some story if they tie it in. I am absolutely 100% down for story expansions, whatever. Like, if they drop something, I'm 100% getting it. Elden Ring's my game of the year, hands down. Love it, adore it, masterpiece. Give me more.
Yeah, I mean, like, for people that are listening, like, I know Elden Ring and those games can be considered niche, but honestly, I think it's like the best game to jump into when it comes to like that genre, because you can call other people in, you can just explore if you want and level up. And look, I'll admit, like, I may be an MLG pro when it comes to first-person shooters sometimes, but when it comes to Elden Ring and Souls games, I am abysmal. I'm terrible. Like, I'll admit, like, I've never been able to finish a Souls game, by FromSoft. I always give up, and when I get to a boss in a game where I can't get past, I rage to the point where I will uninstall it. It's happened with multiple From Software games. I couldn't even get past the beginning of Sekiro simply because I had no shield. But Elden Ring's special. Like, I got through that game, I persevered. All my boss fights are in one video on YouTube, which it's a long video, but it's just boss battles. But yeah, Elden Ring, it's an exciting time again. And of all places, it has to be the Game Awards where they announce that stuff. People have been waiting long enough, and it just feels like it's been too long. I remember after other From Software games, we waited a few months, and then we got told about what's going to be in like a season pass, like, with Dark Souls 3. So, hopefully we'll see that stuff soon, and we only have to wait 2 days for the Game Awards. So, yeah, exciting stuff ahead. And honestly, I think it's probably going to be the best time to jump into Elden Ring, especially with more people coming back to play PvP. I will say this, though. PvP in Elden Ring, I have zero interest. like, I wish they could make it so you could just spectate and watch other people fight, because I'm very basic when it comes to Elden Ring. I have a sword and a shield, I roll around, I do the whole knight thing, and that's pretty much it. But other people, they'll go around with like magic, multiple whips, all over the place. But it's pretty cool to watch. I added this topic before we went live, and that's the Xbox DVR. We've said our opinions on this in the past. I think the DVR on Xbox could be way better. The Xbox Series X and S came out in 2020, and you could record, 2 minutes of 1080p footage, And then about a year later, it got halved, and we weren't really told why. Right? That's why most video game clips on Twitter from Xbox consoles are a minute long. Just because that's what we've got now. Well, over the past week or so, we got an update that actually increases the bitrate. And I've been doing some testing, and the video quality is massively better. Like the file size of about a minute long footage clip from Xbox is about 100 to 125 megabytes. Well, since the new update, they doubled. Most of the files I've got at the minute are about 200 megabytes, and they're crystal clear. At some points later in the show, I'll actually have clips from the new DVR update. But yeah, clips look excellent now. Now with Twitter compression, they'll obviously go down a bit, but from now on, clips are definitely going to look better when you post from your Xbox. And I believe Xbox One console's got that update as well. Like, Logan, have you noticed it all? Because clips look significantly better now.
I've noticed a lot of people posting higher quality stuff lately. I haven't personally posted anything from DVR, but I have definitely been noticing much more quality images and files, and the length is definitely improved. And I mean, if it took this long to get it right, then so be it. It seems like it's definitely a step in the right direction, but there's still some more quality of life stuff they got to work on. But DVR progress, good thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, DVR is pretty much my number one complaint when it comes to Xbox hardware and software. Like, it just needs to be better. And, you have PlayStation with their, like, suite of tools and stuff. Like, people want stuff like that on Xbox, and, they have the tools to do it. They have teams that work at Microsoft that help make, video editing footage. So it's like, just bring that to Xbox, tone it down a bit, make it simpler, but it'll happen eventually. But hey, increasing the bitrate, I highly recommend people like post some clips on Twitter. You'll notice a big difference. Anyway, we'll move on. About a few hours ago before we went live, the Dead Island 2 trailer went live. Brand new gameplay trailer, and honestly, it looks amazing. As a fan of Techland, like what they can do with the whole zombie genre, it looks really good. And honestly, I couldn't get into the first Dead Island. Just for some reason, could not do it. I was aware of how huge the game was. It was really popular, especially after that CGI trailer. I couldn't get on board. But I love Dead Island. Or I should say Dying Light. I'm going to get those two mixed up from now on. I apologise. But new trailer came out, bunch of gameplay, and it's gory as hell. It looks amazing. There's a part in the trailer where there's a few zombies in a swimming pool and you can throw a toaster in there and it gets rid of them. It looks really cool. Did you get a chance to see it, Logan? Because it literally just came out a few hours ago.
I haven't seen it. I'll admit that I completely forget that game exists. It has been dead and resurrected so many times, I keep forgetting it actually is alive again. So I will check that out. The first one, I played it, I enjoyed it, but I just did not like the models of the zombies and the people. It just felt a little rubbery to me, like textury, like the people and the zombies, and then all these just dead eye looks. But hopefully the second one improves that.
Yeah, I mean, the second one was announced, I think it was E3 2013 on the PlayStation stage, where there's a dude running on the beach, and it just went quiet for years. Like, I remember we got gameplay screenshots in 2014 in, I think it was Xbox Magazine or something, and it looked really cool. But the game, they went quiet for almost a decade. Everyone forgot about it. It became a meme. It's one of those vaporware games where we think it's like either never going to come out or when it does come out, it's going to be a mess. But everything I've seen so far looks great. I highly recommend people watch it. I think there's a 4K trailer up available now. And yeah, like it looks like they're taking really good elements from Dying Light, like such as like the drop kicking and stuff and the climbing, and it looks like they've put it in this, which is really cool. And I'm always up for a very cool setting for a zombie game because this is LA and it's bright and colourful, which you don't see in too many zombie games. Like everything's always grey and yellow and stuff, but this is very colourful and I'm all for it. I kind of got Sunset Overdrive vibes from the colour palette, which I'll take more of, I'll be honest. But yeah, looks really cool. I highly recommend people check it out. Again, the game isn't dead. Actually, this wasn't actually in the topic list, but we'll talk about dead games. Skull and Bones, they tweeted again after months of like giving no one updates or anything, and they came out today, posted a new video, and it just looks like more Skull and Bones. Yeah, the game was delayed into I think it's April or something next year. I think it was originally February, but that game coming out alongside Hogwarts Legacy is never going to do well. But that game I can't see doing well, to be honest. The ship combat looks really cool. Again, it's what you got in Assassin's Creed 4. Long do you think you'll be getting like Skull and Bones after like the weird situation it's been in for the past 6 years?
I think I will pick it up when it's on a massive sale. Like it's like one of those that seems to kind of scratch an itch, kind of like naval combat really done well in that time period, pirate vibes could just be really really cool. But I just price and the fact that it's been in development purgatory for ages and been rebooted so many times, and the fact that I'm kind of paranoid about Ubisoft games anyway as of late, as to if they're going to be good or just the same thing. So I'll wait till a steep sale, but I am interested. And personally, I know it kind of sounds counter to what I just said, but personally, I hope it thrives and does really, really well. Maybe, just maybe, forces Rare to actually create a PvE mode instead of just having to deal with people all the time in that game. It's like if this game could just somehow take off and be great, and Rare would be forced to make a new mode, allow some people to play the game a different way. I think that would be a win for everybody. I know there are people who are diehard about it was built this way, they had a vision, they have a reason, yada yada yada. I respect it, I get it. I still think there are some people out there, a noticeable faction, who would enjoy it if Rare would actually make that happen. And this, taking off, could be a good chance to maybe force that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they've been all over the place with that game since it was announced, because originally it was a multiplayer mode for Assassin's Creed 4, and then it was changed to a full game because they thought there was going to be a lot of content there. And like it mainly being PvP, it's going to put a lot of people off. I put probably, I'm not even kidding, about 60 plus hours into Assassin's Creed 4 just because I liked sailing around doing the combat. Like that was the fun part of that game. But swinging onto other people's ships, or should I say other pirate ships, and then, taking out the crew, that was fun. But you're not going to have that in this. It's purely ship battles, and then when you go to the island, you can walk around and buy stuff. That's it. And I just feel like that's not what people wanted. Like, wouldn't you think a billion-dollar corporation like Ubisoft would say, wow, Assassin's Creed 4 is selling constantly. We can barely keep it in stock. Literally, like local game stores around me could not keep Assassin's Creed 4 in stock. And wouldn't you think they would like make a sequel to that, just call it Black Flag 2 or whatever, and have this whole spin-off franchise based on pirates? And they couldn't do that. That is like mind-boggling. Because if I ran Ubisoft, I'd be like, okay, we're going to get a sequel out, or at least a spin-off with exact same combat, have towns that you can explore, but no, it's just PvP and ship-to-ship battles. And again, we'll be talking about prices later in the show, but that game is coming out at £70. Like, I live in a country where Ubisoft titles almost always sell well. Like, almost all of their titles sell really well in the United Kingdom. But that game coming out at £70, oof, that's not going to end up well. But hey, I hope they have success for it, because again, I like a lot of Ubisoft titles. I don't want them to have failure, and a lot of cool people work on those games for, again, almost a decade, which is a long time. And speaking about Ubisoft, I think a lot of people might have noticed this, that if you go to the Xbox store right now, in most countries at least, there's an option to get, or I should say, buy one game, get one free, and it's a bunch of Ubisoft titles. I've never seen this offer before on Xbox, ever, for any title, any publisher, and I noticed it about 2 days ago, and yeah, a range of games, such as, Far Cry 5, Far Cry 6, the Ghost Recon games, Immortals Phoenix Rising, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the more newer titles in those franchises. But yeah, if you go to the store, you can buy one and get one free. And if you're into a lot of Ubisoft titles and you haven't played those, best time to jump on board. Logan, have you noticed that at all? Did they have that in the US?
Yeah, we had it, and I thought it was a great thing. I mean, unfortunately for me, I had the ones I already was interested in, so it personally didn't impact me. But I think it's a great sign, and I hope people take advantage of it. And I hope more publishers, including Microsoft themselves, utilize it more. Like we have at video stores here in the U.S. all the time, like Labor Day or July or whatever, some holiday sale they'll have, and they'll have a BOGO deal, buy one get one, or they'll have a B2GO, buy two get one. Like, just it seems like a good idea for Microsoft to embrace that more, and maybe our publishers will for temporary sales. I think it gets more people invested in your publishing portfolio, and it builds some goodwill. It just seems smart to me.
Yeah, like I'm someone I'll admit I love Ubisoft titles. I think they aren't perfect, but I just have fun with them. A lot of people have these games which they play year round, like it might be The Division, Destiny, Halo multiplayer, or whatever, Call of Duty. I don't really have that. I hop from game to game all year round. But the games I tend to play the most are Ubisoft titles. Which is a bit of a shame because when I saw this deal, I thought, okay, I own basically every game there, and the only Ubisoft game I don't play is The Division, and, well, Rainbow Six. Not my type of thing. But, yeah, bit of a shame for me, but for everyone else, hey, go at it. Spend money, have fun, and plus, if you have Microsoft rewards, you might have enough to get a game. Just put that out there. By the way, Microsoft Rewards, that's a hell of a deal. Like, I know we talk about it a lot, but like the amount of games I've bought in hardware and just Game Pass, which we'll be talking about later in the show, it's ridiculous. Highly recommend people spend the points. Why not? Anyway, we'll move on. I noticed Taki Sacked in chat said before that A Plague Tale Requiem, a lot of people are ignoring it, and I want to bring that up because I'm about 6 chapters in. It is brilliant. Soundtrack, voice acting, graphics, gameplay, stunning. I loved the first game. I thought it was brilliant. So I'm just taking my time with the sequel. But I think the reason some titles are getting overlooked is because, the whole Activision deal is basically taking up most of the gaming news. God of War came out on PlayStation, and look, whenever PlayStation releases one of their AAA games, it's a war online, like where people have to talk about that all the time. It's like I've noticed PlayStation fans they'll talk about their AAA third person over the shoulder action adventure games, and they won't talk about third party games much. And I think that's a bit of a shame. Again, Plague Tale, amazing. If you haven't played the first one, anyone listening, go play it. I think it's cheap. I think it might still be in Game Pass. It's worth checking out. But I think it'll get more recognition at the Game Awards and other award shows throughout the year. And we have the BAFTA Game Awards in, I think, March 2023, which I know for a fact it'll get some love there because the first one did. But yeah, A Plague Tale Requiem, incredible game. Again, halfway through, I just think it came out at a weird time. I think the first game released around about the same time and the same thing happened, but looking back, people look back fondly on that. But yeah, highly recommend people play that. Again, it's in Game Pass. Anyway, we'll move on. Just wondering, Logan, did you play A Plague Tale Requiem yet?
I have not. It's in my backlog. I want to beat the first one before I jump in.
Okay, you'll love it, by the way. Excellent game. Like, honestly, it's probably one of my favorite action adventures over the past decade. Just such a good game, such a good story. And the graphics they were pushing at the time, in 2000, I think it was 18 that came out, super impressive stuff. We actually have some good Halo news. Now, I normally don't bring up Halo simply because I don't play the multiplayer. I played the campaign and I'm out. I'm going to play the co-op at some point, but I don't really play multiplayer in general now. Even though, as I'm saying that, there's PvP Dragonflight on screen. So anyway, new update for Halo multiplayer, which includes custom game browser. All armor cores are now free. The pit is back, the pit from Halo 3. Mouse and keyboard support, balancing, and just a bunch of fixes. And a lot of people online seem very positive about Halo Infinite, which is shocking because there's accounts that exist to basically just trash on Halo year round. But today, positive talk, and I know you play multiplayer, so Logan, you can take it.
Yeah, I'm very very enthusiastic about this update. It has a bunch of things people have been wanting for a long time. These balances, making some of these cores that were hidden behind either limited time deals in the store or just events that were quick and then they're gone, poof, you can't get them. Being able to just go ahead and make a bunch of those available to everybody kind of as a fresh slate, like, all right, everybody, we all have the cool sets, we can jump in, fresh set, holidays are here, let's all be happy, come together, make Halo just enthusiastic and positive right now, and build on momentum. Like, the previous multiplayer head just left. Good luck with his next endeavors. I'm not sure where he's going, but he left, and there was other recent leadership changes. People had been kind of, the drill with the Halo Infinite stuff. This year has been chaotic, but to end the year on a good note, on a surprise note, this came out of nowhere. A lot of people have been wanting some of this stuff and had been kind of fingers crossed it might come eventually. But to just drop it as like a shadow drop update was super cool. And hopefully this is like a fresh start it really, really needs to cap the year off strong and head into 2023, full gas tank, ready to roll.
Yeah, it's a good sign. I mean, Call of Duty's never really had this content problem because they have like 20 studios. I'm paraphrasing, but they have like 20 studios making content all the time. High Noon Studios, all their studios that used to make really cool games, and now support studios. You have Battlefield, which for the longest time had no content, and now they're getting into a good shape. Battlefield 2042 is now in Xbox Game Pass. People want to download it, now you have the chance. But Halo, it just seems like there's been a lot of positive talk lately. Halo Infinite's problem has never been the game itself; it's always been content. And I feel like people like the art style, they like the gameplay, they just want more. And if they want more of something, that means it's good. And it's pretty cool to see the Halo fan base really happy. Again, today I've seen no negative talk about Halo Infinite. And when it comes to sci-fi fandoms, we all know people complain about everything. Doesn't matter if it's Halo, Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, the list goes on. People will complain no matter what. But today, all positive talk. And I'm there for it. It's great. Maybe one day I'll give multiplayer another try, but I don't know. By the way, it freaks people out when I tell them I mainly play single player games and I'm an Xbox guy. It's like they get offended by it.
Where are the sad dad games, Jamie? Where are they?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the sad dad things in a bit, but like, honestly, I like just hopping from game to game. Like, year round, I post pictures and gifs and clips, and I'm all over the place. Sometimes I'm playing a 16-bit, JRPG. The next minute I'm playing Human Fall Flat, where you're jumping on blocks. Like, it's weird. And I'm a weird person when it comes to that stuff. I'm aware I'm all over the place. But I like to keep things fresh on my toes. But anyway, that's enough of me rambling about that. Halo Infinite, it's getting better. It's a good sign of things to come, especially when they're putting out a content patch like this without really talking about it in advance. That's always a good sign, in my opinion. Anyway, we'll move on. Actually, I'd be interested if anyone in chat has tried out the new pit stuff, if it is available. Yeah, we'll move on. We're going to talk about the Callisto protocol now, but in its reviews, in its review process, because I think it's interesting. Actually, before we continue, people enjoying the show. Again, we had a few weeks off because I had COVID and all that stuff. Please share it out. Really helps the show out. We are going to be back to, regular every week podcasts and super chats and all live and stuff if you want to, contribute. Anyway, so the Callisto protocol came out, I think it was like last Friday or something. I've been excited for that game for like 2 years ever since it was announced. And when I hear that Glenn Schofield is basically making a spiritual successor to Dead Space, the franchise he created, I get excited. And then when I see that it looks like Dead Space and it plays like Dead Space, and it's advertised almost exactly like the first Dead Space game, that got me even more excited. So the game comes out, and performance issues aside, or ray tracing issues aside, the reviews were kind of weird about it. They were saying it's not original in how they're relying on too much being like Dead Space, and that really got to me. I hate the fact that we're at a point now where every game has to be original, or else they downvote it. Like the fact it was like getting 7s and 6s. Like I saw some review outlets actually give it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. That is mind blowing. And the funny thing is, I've been playing it. I've been ranting about it at certain boss battles, but it is arguably one of the best looking games I have ever played. Ever. It is gorgeous. And I just don't get the reviews. There are problems with the game, but I'm happy I bought it. I'm enjoying it. Without the boss battles, shall I say. But, its problems isn't that... or it's like Dead Space. Dead Space is an amazing game. The remake comes out in January. There's 18 minutes of footage up on IGN right now. Again, if you want to see the beginning of that game and what it looks like in the remake, it's phenomenal. There's nothing else like it. But, the Callisto Protocol, I think it is probably a must-play game for horror fans. If you're a Dead Space fan, you have to play it. It's not perfect. The dodge system in it, I think, is atrocious. They should just put a regular dodge in. As someone that, I'll admit, for everyone listening, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to horror games. I'm terrible at them. That's why I don't play many. I liked Alan Wake. I liked Alien Isolation. A few Resident Evil games in the past. And that's kind of it. Right? I'm just terrible at horror games. I feel like my heart is going to explode. I'm not even kidding. I almost had an anxiety attack the other day just because of these zombie things coming out of the walls. That's what I'm like with horror games. But the Callisto Protocol, it looks amazing. And I think the only problem with it is that it doesn't feel fair in a lot of cases. They throw a lot of enemies at you all the time, whereas in Dead Space, you'd be walking down a corridor for maybe 10 minutes before encountering any enemy. But in this game, they are all over the place. Thankfully, there's lots of ammo and that stuff. But, I'm near the end. I think I've got one chapter left, I think. People keep telling me I've got more boss battles ahead, which kind of frightens me, I'm not going to lie. There's a boss called Two Head, which is not the nicest enemy, I'll put it like that. And apparently I get to fight it again a few more times, which is worrying. Funny thing is, I was watching Dr. Disrespect yesterday. He was stuck on the same boss. Two Head, getting attacked by other zombies, all over the place. But anyway, the game's cool. I'm happy I bought it. It's probably going to be in my top 10, despite the issues. And yeah, I just think it's weird how it got reviews. Like, Logan, I know we talked about this in DMs, but the review process for that game makes no sense.
Yeah, it feels kind of disingenuous, to be honest. Especially if one of the biggest things is, it's not innovative, or it's too similar to Dead Space. It's like, one, do you know who made this game? It's Glenn Schofield and a bunch of guys and girls who came over from Visceral, who made the original Dead Space trilogy, making a spiritual successor. Of course, it's going to feel a lot like it, or it's inspired by it. It's going to be a spiritual successor. There are differences, obviously, in mechanics and some of the more melee and nitty gritty focus, but overall vibes, aesthetic, lore type, what they're going for is very Dead Space. And be so hyped about it, saying, it's going to be like Dead Space, I can't wait. And then you play it, you're like, it's too much like Dead Space. I'm like, out of here. What do you want? Watch these people when Dead Space Remake comes out. They just absolutely nail the reviews and give it just glowing remarks. And they say, oh, this is Dead Space. And then I'm like, yes, it is Dead Space. Congratulations. It's just, I don't know. I mean, kind of just find a slant and stick to it. Just the whole wishy washy stuff about stuff. But as far as like some positive things from the game, like I like the idea of the more nitty gritty as kind of a difference maker. Like this feels just really primal, just gross, and like I am stuck in this space prison on Callisto, way away from anybody else. I am trapped by these unholy abominations. They're crawling, they're screaming, they're just trying to rip me apart. And I just grab whatever I can and try to bash in the ever loving out of these things to just get out and claw my way alive. Like, it is a different experience, but it does feel very Dead Space in the setting and some other stuff. I do think the dodge needs work. I think, please, in a future update, make an option for like a button press or something instead of being stick focused. Like, it doesn't feel intuitive to have to dodge left and then dodge right like you're in a boxing match. Like, people can dodge left twice or they can dodge right twice. You shouldn't have to switch back and forth. And then, but on the pros, want to give them a shout out for all the accessibility options I noticed. Like, for people that have concerns or issues with certain things, like there are some things you can turn off or adjust in the accessibilities that I thought were unique in horror games. Like, for example, like there's some hallucination effects and stuff that some might find really upsetting, and even more so than a traditional horror game, and might make it where they didn't feel comfortable with this game. Titles and a whole bunch of other stuff as far as their accessibility goes is really top notch, and so I wanted to give them a shout out about that. Uh, um, as far as the ray tracing and all that, apparently Schofield came out and said that yeah, it was a clerical error. They accidentally uploaded the wrong file or something like that. Which it's kind of goofy, but hey, it happens. We're human. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm excited about it. I love horror. I'm a horror junkie personally. So I really hope it takes off and with the new updates fixes things. People give it a chance and it takes off and we get more of them. Like I want more franchises to succeed. Like I am all for innovation and new things. I'm also for if I like something, I would like to see more of it. There shouldn't be just have to be one and dones. There's a reason we get invested in franchises. We like the characters, the lore, the worlds, the gameplay. Like think about it. What if Halo, they had just made Halo Combat Evolved, like you blew up the Halo, got off scot free, just end credits roll, never have Halo 2 or any of that other stuff. Or like God of War, like he gets revenge against Ares, and that's just it. It's like there's a reason why we like franchises. There should be a way to easily get a balance between having more franchises that we love while also innovating and having some new stuff. You shouldn't have to pick or choose. I feel like reviewers really, really, really are holding that against some games, and I just find it disingenuous, personally.
Yeah, well, I'm going to rip into the reviews while I can. I honestly think a lot of reviewers have their heads up their asses. I'm not going to lie. Because, like, and this has been going back years, like, Immortals Phoenix Rising came out, right? Even the developers referred to that as, ancient Greek Breath of the Wild. But when it comes to video games in general, I like games to be reviewed as themselves rather than compare them against other games because, like, look at Mass Effect 2, masterpiece, best in the entire franchise. If we compare every single future, hub-based third-person RPG to Mass Effect 2, they're going to lose every single time. And I feel like, the same thing happened with Immortals Phoenix Rising. All the reviews just talked about Breath of the Wild. And the same thing's happening with this game. It's like Dead Space has been around for like 15 years. People love that. that game. There's been multiple games. There was a mobile game. By the way, if anyone ever gets the chance to play the iOS Dead Space game at some point, somehow, play it. It's a full Dead Space game, start to finish. There was Dead Space on the Wii and all that stuff, and I think there's like 2 animated Dead Space films. Like, people love Dead Space, and the fact that
I enjoyed them.
Yeah, they were pretty good. And by the way, developers, I hope we get more animated films when it comes to video game IP, because in the late 2000s we were getting a ton. There's even one for Mass Effect 3. It's called Paragon Lost. I've seen that more times than pretty much anyone else, I'm guessing. But I hope we get more of them. But yeah, comparing this game to Dead Space in every angle and every review doesn't seem fair on it, because it's not going to win. Dead Space is legendary. It's 15 years old. And, the remake comes out soon. That makes sense that you compare that game, but this game, no. But anyway, the good things about this game, it is absolutely stunning. Like, people keep talking about God of War this year when it comes to graphics and A Plague Tale Requiem, both of which look amazing. Honestly, I'm putting this out there, I think this is the best looking game of the year. It is stunning. I'm playing it in resolution and, graphics mode, because I feel like, I just want to see the pretty graphics in this game, and considering I'm dying a lot, I get to see all the gruesome deaths. Yeah. But yeah, it's beautiful. Honestly, I'm interested in the universe. Like, this, like the game starts out, and it's not a spoiler. You're on this like cargo ship, this cargo freighter that you're piloting, and just like you're exploring it. And I'm thinking, like, obviously, I'm going to think this. Like, I was thinking, what's the next Mass Effect going to look like? And just seeing the third-person gameplay, the sci-fi universe to create it. I want to see more games in this universe. I don't care if they're horror or whatever. I just want to see more games. And, I think the actor's name is Josh Duhamel. However you pronounce it, does an amazing job in the game. A lot of the reviews are saying that the game doesn't have story. And all I can think is, did they play it? It has cutscenes. It has a really cool story. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. But with that aside, I think it's a really cool game. They will fix a lot of this stuff in patches. Again, like you were saying, the dodge. The second that dodge mechanic happened to me in the tutorial section, I think people at the other side of the earth could hear my eyes roll, because I got an idea of what the dodge mechanic was going to be throughout this game, and I was just like, okay, prepare for pain, Jamie. And I have. But yeah, other than that, like the dodge mechanic, maybe fewer enemies in certain hallways. But other than that, the gameplay is phenomenal. I don't care what people say. People saying it's slow. Like, if that was fast like Fortnite or something else, or Apex, it wouldn't make sense. You're in a prison. Karen Fukunau's in the game. Sam Wit. I can't remember how you pronounce his name. The guy from Force Unleashed is in this, and it's good. If people want a horror game, I highly recommend people play it. I will say this though, and this was a point I wanted to talk about. Its price. In the United Kingdom, it costs $54.99, so they didn't go with the whole $70. Logan, what's its price in the US?
I believe it's 70, and then the deluxe edition, which I got, digital deluxe, was like 80-ish. And then, the collectors was like 250.
Okay, so I'll just talk about dollars. So, when Dead Space came out in 2008, it was, $60. And that game is about 12 hours long. And this game, people are saying it is also about 12 hours long. I'm dying so many times, it's probably going to be double. But people are comparing the prices with then and now. And, even the developer was on about how games, they're more expensive to make now, because the graphical fidelity you're getting, I get it. And again, we're going to be talking about prices later in the show. I think the price factor of a lot of games are going to hurt them, because like we'll talk about Starfield and stuff later in the show, but those are like huge open world AAA games, and then you have this amazing looking third person horror game that's about 12 hours long, and I honestly think that people will look at the price and say no, just because they don't want to pay $70 for this 12-hour experience. And honestly, I can't blame them. In the UK, again, we'll talk about later in the show, the prices have gone up multiple times over the past 12 years, and people are sick of it. And when people are talking about the prices of these games, like if that launched at £70 in the UK, it would have done badly. Like I'm just putting that out there. Call of Duty sells well at whatever price that's at, but I don't know. I just think we've talked about this in the past. I honestly think games need a sliding scale. We can't just have one price fits all. Unless you like Sony, Ubisoft, Microsoft, Activision all price their games at 70, which we'll talk about later. And then you have like these smaller publishers like Focus Interactive and THQ price their games at like $30 or $40. But I think honestly these developers and publishers should look at the game they're putting out, what genre is it, how much content's there, and price it accordingly. Because I think these prices are gonna hurt these games. Look at Guardians of the Galaxy last year. My favorite game of 2021. Game of the year for me. And it came out at like £70. And I honestly think that hurt the game. Square Enix, I'm going to put all the blame on them. That hurt the game. Like, I saw a lot of people talk about how cool Guardians of the Galaxy looks, but they didn't want to spend £70. £70, by the way, is a year of Disney Plus. That's crazy. And it's going to happen for the rest of the generation, and I don't know, I'm just saying, I think the Callisto Protocol is going to be hurt by its price. Like, I get the game technology has came a long way, but it gets to a point where people don't want to be spending almost $100 for these video games, which you can finish in 15 hours. Like, Logan, do you get my points? Like, because the sliding scale needs to be a thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And this might be a crazy example, but just hear me out. Like Vampire Survivors. I think this is a topic on the show today, but Vampire Survivors is like $6, like $6. And it is on my top 10 game of the year list, a lot of other people's game of the year list. This small one or two dev studio making this just insanely addictive, bullet hell game where you are the bullet storm. And Vampire's like retro graphics, but just super fun scalability, replayability, characters, items, magic, gear, levels, lore, whatever. It's just a fantastic game. And it's like $6. And then an expansion is coming out soon that'll be like $2 to $4, somewhere in there. Like insane value. And to be fair, it also probably reflects like the amount of investment and time, energy, stuff like for that scale of product. And then you have a game like like the old school Pokemon games, for example. I know this isn't Nintendo, but I put hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours in those games. Like today, if that Pokemon Red or Blue or Gold or Silver or whatever came out today and was $70, like I would have totally gotten my money's worth out of that. But there are definitely some games that, frankly, don't pass the sniff test for $70. Like if it's gonna be $70, I personally feel like it needs to have either some huge technological innovation that is just justifies the price, or the amount of content, or just something that screams that this is truly premium. Like you can only get it via this. It makes sense. To me, just to slap on $70 because everybody else is doing it, it just feels like a kind of a cheap way to just slide by and pass the dollars onto your consumers instead of yourself. Because especially when you see Sony, Microsoft, everybody else talk about all these record profits they're getting every year, then they go, well, it's just costing so much, and it's just times are tough, and we're just gonna have to raise the price some more, and it's just unfortunate, but the quality is just it's this. And So we're just gonna have to charge you a little bit more. I mean, I'm sure you'll understand. It's just like I don't know, like some point I get it, but another point, like give me a good reason why it needs to be $10. Actually prove it. Don't just make a game that doesn't seem frankly that much significantly different than previous gen, except for some graphics and some few other things. Like truly deliver a mind blowing experience or value proposition if you're gonna bump the price.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use some UK prices that might surprise people. So, and again, we'll be talking about the Microsoft thing later in the show. You know, the original Dead Space launched in the UK at £37. That was about the equivalent of $60 at the time, and the remake is £70. Uh, adjusting for inflation, that's about $80, $82, and like, don't get me wrong, I want to get it. It's going to take a lot to stop me from buying the Dead Space remake, but like just the $70 price, or should I say £70 price, is going to put a lot of people off. And I just think about the sliding scale thing. Like, think about how many millions more people would buy games if the price was right. Like, look at The Quarry. The Quarry released at £70, and I saw everyone play the game of how low can you go. Because I was waiting for that price to drop. Like, everyone was waiting for that price to drop. And that game is apparently really good. It looks gorgeous, and people just
Phenomenal, but not $70 worth. No.
yeah, exactly. Like I've played a lot of games I'd say is amazing, phenomenal, and I would say that I wouldn't pay £70 for them. Like, I'm looking at myself right now. Elden Ring. Elden Ring cost £49.99 in the UK. They could have slapped £70 on that, and people would have bought it. But the fact that it's one of the best-selling games of the year, it didn't cost £70. Like, you've got to think like regardless of how much people might love a game or a franchise, like, you have to step back and think, like, does the game, one, warrant its price, and is that price going to cut people off? Because when this generation started and the prices went up for a lot of companies, a lot of people told me, like, I don't want to buy games day one anymore. And when those games don't sell day one, people are waiting for a sale, and that puts developers and publishers off from making sequels. So, like, and I don't put any blame on the consumer, by the way. I put all the blame on the publishers. These publishers make billions of dollars via microtransactions, DLC, sales, the list goes on. When I talk about the sliding scale thing, the first Titanfall, the best one, which released in 2014, I believe in the UK that launched at £35 to £40, and it sold 11 million copies. And it was just multiplayer. There was no single player campaign, pure multiplayer online. And I just feel like the prices are going to really affect games. So unless you're Starfield or you're God of War, Spider-Man, or whatever, Hellblade 2 or whatever, I honestly think these $70 games are going to affect everyone. And last year, or might have been earlier in the year, I played Enslaved Odyssey to the West for the first time. I really enjoyed it. It's very much, yeah, it's really good. It's very much a Ninja Theory game, and again, it's backwards compatible. I highly recommend people play it. Really good game. But when I finished it, I thought to myself, would I have paid full price for this? And I kind of questioned myself, because I was thinking I wouldn't spend £70 on this. But back when it launched at about £32. I would have spent that much at day one. I didn't really know about it at the time. And again, I just think in the modern day, developers and publishers need to price games accordingly, because otherwise a lot of games are going to fail. I just think that, I've talked about it in the past. I'd be interested, like, does the 15 to 12 hour horror experience for $70 interest people? Because next year, we're getting a lot of horror games, and most of them are pretty much going to be 12 to 15 hours long. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind knowing. Anyway, we'll move on. About an hour into the show. Again, if people are enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. Yeah. So, this is going to be an interesting topic. Actually, no, we've got another thing. Monster Hunter Rise. This will be a quick one. Got announced for Xbox, Series X, Series S, and Xbox One consoles. PlayStation as well. And yeah, it's coming to Game Pass day one. I think it's February 20th. Oh, sorry, January 20th. And yeah, coming to Game Pass day one, which is surprised a lot of people because that is one of the best selling games on the Nintendo Switch at the minute. People love that game. Apparently, it's easier to get into than Monster Hunter World. I feel like that game had just a huge learning curve. At least it did for me. But yeah, the game's going to be 4K, 60 FPS. It's going to have a bunch of quality of life improvements, better support for multiplayer and all that stuff. But yeah, it just came out of nowhere. And honestly, I can't wait to play it. I'll probably be terrible at it, but that's the best thing about it. I'll get to try it. And the cool thing is that this releases just before the next expansion, which is going to be in February, I think. In the UK, its price is £32. So if you want to buy it outright, pretty good price. Logan, what do you think? Because like a lot of people are hyped about this announcement.
Yeah, this came out of left field for me. I was really surprised that it actually managed to escape the Switch and come to other consoles. I kind of figured it would stay there, but the fact it's coming to Xbox and Game Pass day one is a huge win, and a sign of the relationships that Sarah Bond, Phil Spencer, and others have been building with Japanese devs and companies like Capcom and Sega are starting to bear fruit and pay dividends. Like a few years ago, there wouldn't be this wouldn't fly, wouldn't happen at all. So this is a huge deal. I'm definitely gonna check it out. There's probably a good chance I'll buy it. I really like Monster Hunter. And one thing I did find interesting though is this is going to be a digital only title for I think Xbox and PlayStation. Like for some reason they're just not making physical copies for this game. And so I wonder if this is Capcom testing the waters to see if maybe they can just shift to a digital focus or if it's kind of just a one-off since it had been on Switch so long and now they're just porting it. But I don't know. I think that's something to keep an eye on to see if maybe some major publishers, along with price changes, are looking at kind of phasing out physical as well.
Yeah, the digital only model kind of threw me off a bit because Capcom kind of likes to do the physical editions. So like they even do it with the Mega Man collections and stuff. So it really surprised me. But yeah, probably are testing out the waters for going digital only. That doesn't really surprise us. I think EA and Ubisoft are looking at that in the future as well. At least a lot of the forecasts have shown that stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, I loved what I played of Monster Hunter World. Like, I bought Monster Hunter World day one. I put probably about 20 hours into it. But, like, the learning curve just broke me for that game. But, like, if this is easier to get into, I'll give it another shot. And again, I like the idea of Monster Hunter as a franchise. I think it's really cool. Again, that is very much a video game related thing. Fighting giant monsters. And I have a little confession for everyone listening. I loved the Monster Hunter movie, the one with Mila Jovovich, and I know it's kind of terrible,
It was all right.
but it was all right. The thing is, I've noticed I really like crappy video game movies. I thought the Uncharted movie was okay. I thought the '90s Mario movie was somewhat watchable. The cheesy Street Fighter movie, I actually like it. But yeah. Monster Hunter. I can't wait for it. Again, January, day one, Xbox Game Pass. But the 4K 60 thing, like, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, watch the 4K 60 FPS trailer on YouTube. It looks stunning. I don't know whatever resolution it was on the Switch, but clearly it's going to be a bit higher. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so we may as well talk about the GameSpot thing now. So as Gotham Knights was... Yeah, this is going to be a ranty one. When
All
Gotham,
hail the potato.
yeah, when Gotham Knights was announced to come out at 30 FPS, people lost their minds. It was pandemonium online, and everyone lost their mind. By the way, I love what I've played so far. I really need to get back to it. But as a generation of almost everything being 60 FPS. This threw a lot of people off. And this artist from Rocksteady's, I should say, Justice League game, can't say certain words on YouTube, but you know which game I'm talking about, came out and said, oh, the Xbox Series S is a potato, and it's holding games back and all that stuff, which kind of threw me for a loop because you have God of War releasing on the PlayStation 4, which is weaker than the Series S, and that game looks phenomenal. And basically, this is the only developer I've seen talk about the Series S in a negative light. Well, weeks passed, people get on with the day, topics change, people get on with their lives, and GameSpot, of all places, clickbait the living hell out of it, saying that it's an albatross. That's right, they refer to the Series S as an albatross in the gaming space, and developers want to move away from it. There is no proof that developers want to move away from the Series S at all. None. And they posted this exact same tweet, literally word for word, all the grammar, just copy and pasted. Basically posted it, I think it was like 4 or 5 times in the span of a few weeks. And the Series S, for a few weeks, became extremely clickbaitable because a lot of huge YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, to the point where you think you'd be more responsible to do more research and talk about it. There's no evidence of anyone saying that the Series S needs to be dropped. None. At all. And then you have these outlets talking about it like it's a thing. One of my mates in real life who actually has a Series S, who just talks about resolution and, frame rate all the time. He plays Call of Duty at 120 FPS on that tiny little machine, and he has no complaints. And I found it a bit weird that GameSpot, of all places, was running with it. Although then again, weren't they taking checks, allegedly, for Last of Us reviews back in 2013? Just putting that out there. It was a thing, apparently. Allegedly. But yeah, GameSpot, they clickbaiting everyone. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because it's been really cringe.
Yeah, it caught my attention. The first time I saw it, I was like, okay, GameSpot being GameSpot, whatever. Kind of, there are certain publications you kind of just get an inkling, like, okay, they like to stir the pot some and post something out there to get reactions, get engagements. And so I was kind of like, all right, so that's one of those, move on. Then I just keep seeing it over and over and over and over and over again. And it's not just people, retweeting it or whatever. It's literally they just keep posting it. I'm like, is it that slow of a news cycle lately? I mean, have you been following the deal that's been going on all year, or Game Awards this week, or all this other just crazy stuff happening? Yet you're focused on hearsay, just bud basically, and you just keep regurgitating the same article over and over and over and over again. It's at some point, my goodness, dude, get it. The Series S is a hot topic for your site and engagement, I guess. But it's weird, and you think they could do more, do a little differently. But if that's working for their algorithms and stuff, then I get it. I don't like it personally. I think it's kind of easy, but it seems like they just have found something and have latched onto it like a dog in a bone, and they're just not going to let it go. No matter the fact that the S was selling unseemly amounts during the holiday, along with the X, and you could get a Series S for less than $200 in the US. It was crazy, some of the bundles you were getting. So clearly people are liking the Series S. And if people are buying the Series S in droves, and people are having a good experience with it, then I don't see Xbox canning it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but as an armchair businessman. But I don't know. I just think they could find a new slant.
You know what? The weird thing is, right, when it comes to this, as someone that posts content. I know for a fact that if you type Series S, it gets less views. Like this podcast will have less views because it has Xbox Series S at the beginning. Just because that's just how it is. The Xbox Series X is more clickable, right? That's been the way since before the consoles came out. It's the way it is now, which is why a lot of podcasts have Xbox Series S and X in the beginning of the title. It's just because it works. You want your content to be seen. But the thing about the Series S and GameSpot is that negative articles attract a lot of eyes because you have people going there to defend their piece of plastic, and you have the fanboys going there to hate on the console as well. So you have two lots of people visiting these posts. And, GameSpot, they one of the biggest gaming outlets. So when they start posting this, they clearly got traction from that first post. And they keep linking to the same article and talking about it. When, in actuality, nobody really cares. Like, I talked to a lot of developers. Nobody's complaining about the S. No one. And it's just weird that they keep bringing it up, when there's more important things to be talking about. Again, the whole prices thing, we're going to see people brought up, but I just think it's strange. Like, again, if developers had a genuine problem with the Series S, they wouldn't, Microsoft probably wouldn't have made the Series S, because when they make these consoles and do research and development, they ask developers what they want in hardware. Developers knew about the Series S, at least a lot of them did. And I don't know, I think, the algorithm hit with this negative article, and they just keep posting about it. Because here's the thing, for a lot of people that might know, ad revenue in these websites is at its highest in December throughout the year. So you're going to see a lot of clickbait in December. Notice that there's no gaming news at the minute. I should say big stories, like big stories outside of the Activision deal. So you're going to see two types of stories throughout a year when there's no news: GTA leaks, which aren't real, and you're going to see negative articles like this. So when 2023 rolls around and we all playing all these new cool games that haven't been delayed, you're going to see negative articles and things about GTA leaks. People can clip that. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And
yeah, it's clockwork.
Yeah, it's clockwork, and it's going to happen, and it happens all the time. Again, we have about 50 stories a year of GTA leaks. We've had one GTA leak in the past 10 years. One. But we have articles pop up monthly. It's because it's clickbait. Pure, unfiltered clickbait. And the Series S with that negative article, it's just struck. The real telling thing about the Series S is that when next generation rolls around in 2028, it will be interesting to see if Microsoft does 2 tiers again. Because if they do 2 tiers again, it'll all go to show that, all the complaints were non-existent. Because believe me when I say, Microsoft's listening to developers. If developers have a genuine issue with the Series S, you will not see 2 tiers next generation. We'll see 1, and that's it. Maybe a disk driverless machine, maybe, a machine with bigger hard drive space, but you won't see a weaker console. That'll happen, But again, that's enough of the Series S. I think people love the machine. Again, I have a Series X. I love the thing. I don't really have much need for a Series S, but the fact that they have a cheap console going out at £250, sorry, £184 in some places, and I think that's the Fortnite bundle. Like, ridiculous how much value you get in that, and you also get 3 months of Game Pass. So, yeah, the Series S is going to be selling great, and it's going to continue. Speaking of sales, about an hour before the show, we actually got some sales figures, which I'll go over, because they actually paint an interesting picture. So let me find it. Okay, here we go. So, this is a hardware increase from last October. So the Switch is up 175%. The Xbox Series hardware is up 105% from last year. And PlayStation 5 is up 71%. And basically, it's selling really well. The Series consoles proving that, people want to buy hardware. Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo are all in amazing places. Like, remember last generation? People were worried that Xbox was going to go away. At the beginning of last generation, people thought Nintendo was going to go away, and it was just going to be PlayStation. And here we are now. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I didn't do anything. I
Okay.
bumped my mic.
Okay. So like all three are doing really well, and we all win, right? All three are competing. Again, Microsoft's probably going to be competing a lot more in the future. But like everyone's winning. Xbox Series X is selling, Series S, the Switch. We're probably going to see a Switch Pro next year. I should say a Switch 2. And you know the PlayStation's selling well. Everyone's selling well. Although we don't really hear about the Atari VCS, but I don't think we include that, do we? Like, when was the last time anyone talked about the Atari VCS? Looks cool, but not many people are playing it. But yeah, sales wise, everyone's winning. Number one selling game is Call of Duty. I don't think that's a shocker. Call of Duty always sells, but yeah, everyone's winning. Everyone's winning, which is really cool. Anyway, we'll move on. The Xbox 360 Hyperkin controller was announced, and if you like the Xbox 360, how that controller felt, it's basically going to offer the exact same thing. I think they're using the same mold as the 360, slightly modified. Just because it's been 17 years since the release of the Xbox 360. Like that's mind blowing for one thing. It makes me feel old, and a legendary console. But a lot of people like that controller, and it's going to be the same as the 360 controller. It's going to have a share button, and I think they didn't actually show the back of the controller, so I can't really tell. But it's not going to have a battery bump, and it might have the triggers of the Xbox Series X and S controller. Again, I can't really confirm or deny that just because they didn't show the back. But if you like the Xbox 360 style sticks, you have a controller. The only downside is that it's wired. Microsoft's wireless protocol isn't open to everyone, as far as I'm aware. So Hyperkin are just doing the whole wired thing. The only people that do wireless controllers for Xbox, I believe, is Razer and Microsoft themselves. So yeah, that's going to be coming out in 2023. Comes out in 3 colors: white, black, and red. I'm just trying to decide which one to get. Logan, did you see that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved what Hyperkin did with the Duke Resurrection with their controller that they brought back. Like I have the Cortana edition, and it's just a phenomenal with the LED display, graphic stuff, and then the size of it, the scale with the share button, and the modern, innovations they've added to it. So adding the 360 controller, resurrecting it, same company, same idea. The 360 was one of my favorite controllers ever. Period. It just fit my hands perfectly, and it really inspired a lot of future generation controllers as well. Just the button placement, the way the sticks were, the D pad, shoulder buttons, like it just was a pristine controller. And the fact that they're bringing it back is awesome. I'm definitely tempted. I do think it is kind of a buzzkill that it's wired, but it's a small price to pay, and it's mainly for nostalgia purposes anyway. But yeah, I think it's cool they're bringing it back, and I love that controller.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the Xbox Series X and S variant of the controller is the pinnacle design. I love the feeling of every aspect of that controller. It's perfect. So, while I do think the Xbox 360 controller is a step backwards, I love that generation so much. Like, if people follow me on Twitter, I blab on about Xbox 360 games all the time. Literally every single day almost. I talk about the 360 generation. So I'm probably going to buy the controller just because I like that generation. The cool thing is it will actually have a proper headphone jack, unlike the original, which didn't actually take a traditional headphone jack. But yeah, it's pretty much going to be a 360 controller with all modern stuff, but wired. I do hope Microsoft open up the wireless protocol to more developers. It's either that or these third-party developers don't want to pay extra for the wireless protocol. Who knows? Maybe we can find something about that next year. Anyway, but yeah, it looks really cool. And next up, we're going to be talking about the Game Awards. So, Jeff Keighley hypes this show up every year. Like, that's his job. He has to hype this show up. He makes this show. And it is weird that a Game Awards show has a heavy focus on reveals. Like, I think everyone can agree with that. You don't watch the Oscars because you're going to see movie trailers. You don't watch the BAFTA Game Awards for game trailers. You watch it to see the developers get these awards. And, they focus on showing new games. And honestly, that's why a lot of people watch. Well, he's been hyping it up saying, oh, he hasn't felt this good about the Game Awards in a long time. And it's this endless cycle people have noticed. He hypes up the Game Awards, and then a few days before the show happens, he tells people to temper their expectations. So, right on cue, yesterday or the day before, he says that people should temper their expectations. There's going to be less games shown and less big games shown. Now, which one is it? Is it the best show ever? Or should we temper our expectations? Because we've seen huge things announced in the past. The Xbox Series X was announced at the show 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. Hellblade was announced there. Perfect Dark. A bunch of third-party games. Like, the new Mass Effect was announced there. The hypest announcement of all time. New Mass Effect. And you just have this, show happen. I'm looking forward to it for the new reveals. I think last year there was 12 interesting games coming to Xbox at least, which look really cool. And it's just weird that the day before or 2 days before, he's like, okay, temper your expectations. There's going to be less things shown. And it's like, I don't know, Logan, what do you think? Because like we talked about this in chat, and it's like, it is an endless cycle. It happens every year.
Yeah. Well, the Game Awards is a circus, and Keighley is the ringleader. It's just the way it goes. You got to get everybody hyped up for the show, but then once you got everybody frothing mad and kind of just like ready to go and just like amped up, then you go, okay, let's tone it down a little bit. It's not going to be that great. It's going to be good, but not amazing. And you just try to control and just hype and chill. It's just a cycle they always do at his shows in particular. And to be honest, it's entirely subjective. Maybe it is a great show for somebody. I'm sure somebody will be thrilled with every single thing they show. Then there will be some people who are like, what a waste of time. And then most people will be somewhere in the middle or lean one way or another. But it's funny is because people talk about, oh, I haven't felt this good, or I'm so excited for this or this, and then you remember games like Balon Wonderland, how excited they were for that announcement and hype that up, and then you can get it for like $3 at GameStop now. I mean, it's entirely subjective, and I'm looking forward to it because I like the reveals and I like to see good devs get rewarded. Even though I don't know how to feel about this one in particular this year with some of the titles being nominated and some of the criteria and dates and things being shuffled around to make things work. I don't know. It feels a little odd to me this year, but I'll watch it.
I see everyone in chat talking about how like he needs to he doesn't need to host the thing or be in front of the camera for everything, and people have a point, right? Think about it like this: Jeff Keighley hosts the Jeff Keighley The Game Awards, right? In fact, I think he puts on a great show. I think the production value of it is excellent. But then we have Jeff Keighley hosts his own E3 event featuring Jeff Keighley E3 event. And now a European
with
show
with special appearances by Kojima.
Yeah, and then we have a European show, Gamescom, right? A European game show, and he hosts his own thing in LA, featuring Jeff Keighley, starring and produced by Jeff Keighley, a European show, and it's like I get it. Maybe he wants to be the face of the game industry to the public. Maybe that's a topic for another day, but it is weird how he has to be the face, host, and owner of everything related to gaming. Because remember, before the pandemic kicked off, he was like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do E3 this year because I don't feel comfortable about it." Well, at that time, everyone was just doing their own show with their own hosts and own personalities, developers and publishers in front of the camera. And it is a bit weird how, like, he wants to be the center stage of everything gaming related. Maybe that's me looking a bit much into it, but like again, I think he puts on a great show, but why can't other people do, present some of the awards, be in front of the camera, hire comedians? Because in the UK, right, for the BAFTA Game Awards, I highly recommend people watch this. I think it happens in February or March. They have a comedian called Darren O'Brien, who is a legitimate comedian who actually plays video games, and he's genuinely funny. And he's probably going to host the thing next year. Really hilarious guy. He's been doing comedy for like 20 years or something, but knows video games. And I think they need more personalities like that. But when it comes to the whole announcements thing, I stop hyping it up for weeks and months, and then temper your expectations at the last minute, because gamers hate being told that stuff. Every E3, whenever we hear temper your expectations, there's a war online. We see it every year, every game show, and it's like an endless cycle of hype, then temper your expectations. I don't think people are expecting GTA 6, right? Or anything like that. We're not expecting Halo Infinite 2, God of War Ragnarok 2 or whatever. Like people are not expecting that. People just want to see new cool things because we've been stuck in the house for a few years. People want to get back to normal. All the major releases got pushed to next year because I have to wait for Starfield and Hogwarts Legacy. That's not right. But people want to see cool things. And there's all these announcements for games that have been pushed back. Like, look, there's a new Mafia game in development. That was meant to be announced, as far as I'm aware, about a year ago. There's a new BioShock in development. Nowhere to be seen. System Shock 3, yet to get more gameplay and or a release date. It's weird. There's all these games being developed that we know nothing about. And I'm not even talking about platform exclusive stuff. We just want to see cool announcements. That's it. I want to see the developers get the praise they warranted, but stop hyping this thing. Yeah, I'm going to watch it regardless, even though it is at 2 a.m. But yeah, hey, at least it's going to be shorter. It has been 4 hours long in the past. And if you were sitting there in LA in those seats, my ass would be numb. Just putting it out there. But yeah, the Game Awards happens in 2 days. Apparently there's going to be a huge Diablo 4 announcement. It's probably going to be the console beta, putting it out there. But yeah, Diablo stuff's going to be announced there. Really cool in my opinion. Can't wait to play Diablo. Anyway, we'll move on. We will save the Jedi Fallen Order stuff for later in the show. Let's talk about the game price thing now before we talk about Activision and all that stuff. So look, if you've been following me or Logan on Twitter, we all against these $70/70 pound games. Raising the price of games, anyone, I'm talking about Xbox, Activision, Ubisoft, anyone, raising price of $70 or £70 is ridiculous. And, people like to bring up the price of cartridges. I don't like to bring up that because you had, cartridges were manufactured in several different factories, sent to a different country to get put together, which were put in boxes at a different factory, and you had shipping and all that stuff. And it's we can't talk about cartridge prices in a game price conversation in 2022. It makes no sense, right? But Microsoft,
completely different world.
Yeah, it's a different world, and I'll say this because the media didn't talk about this. The price of games in the United Kingdom during the Xbox 360 generation were about £37, £37. And towards the end of the generation, Sony came out and announced their next-gen games would be £50. And then 2K, Activision, Ubisoft followed. And there was not a single article about this, by the way. Nobody talked about this except me on Twitter. Microsoft kept their games at £40, or I should say $39.99. And that was basically the exact same way for Microsoft up until a few years ago. I think Halo 5 came out at £40 as well. Anyway, throughout last generation in the UK, video game prices went from £50 to £55 to £60, and then Sony announce their next gen prices. Bam, £70. £70 is sometimes the equivalent of $90. Right? $90. So I've been against this whole prices going up thing. And it came out yesterday that Microsoft's going to raise the price of their next gen games in 2023. Things like Starfield and Redfall and all that stuff is going to be $70. I hope it's not £70 because that will be outrage. But $70. And I don't think it's right. Right? People have talked for 2 years about the prices being the same and how the prices shouldn't be up. And, people have joked, like, how could Microsoft have raised the prices this year when they've had no games? Like, Microsoft do smaller tier games as well as AAA and games in between. So they will have a sliding scale. Guarantee that. Take that to the bank. Not every game will be $70. So your Pentiment 2, obviously not going to be $70. All that stuff. I don't think they should raise the price of the games. I don't think it makes much sense, especially with everything going on at the minute. Especially after the praise they've gotten. And at the same time, it's like, if you are on Xbox, you also have access to Game Pass, where you can play all of their first-party games, and if you decide to buy them, you get 10% discount on those purchases. So while I think it's a bad move for them to raise the price, where I think they shouldn't, at least you have the, how should I put it? You have the parachute of Xbox Game Pass, right? You can pay for Game Pass. Like, I pay for Game Pass, and I get my money's worth. And honestly, if you pay for Game Pass, you don't really have much reason to buy Microsoft's games outright. Not really. Unless you want to support them even more. So while I think it's a bad move, and they shouldn't do it, clearly, and I'll blame Sony and 2K for making $70 and £70 the norm, right? I blame them completely. Because if they didn't, I guarantee you nobody else would have raised the price. But yeah, it is what it is. I think it's silly. They shouldn't be doing it. But yeah, at least there's Game Pass there. So I'm not condoning it. I'm against it. But I mean, me yelling on a podcast about it isn't going to get anything done. I just think people should be smart with the money. And if people are really smart with the money, you'd be paying for your Game Pass with Microsoft reward points. Logan, I've said my piece. What do you think?
I mean, basically, I agree with you on pretty much everything. It's just like, and I try to be consistent when I praise one or praise another for something, or criticize one, criticize the other. Like, I'm against raising the price, period. And like we basically went over this earlier in the show. Like, unless I see something that is just otherworldly experience, content value, like something they couldn't accomplish at this funds shows evidence of that it's worth this price. To me, they shouldn't, especially when they keep going on and on about how much money they're making and how records this and this and that. And I think it just sends a bad message. And I blame Sony first, and then I blame Ubisoft and not Ubisoft, sorry, Take Two, these other publishers just want to, creep the dollar amount up every so often until, eventually we're paying just outrageous amounts of money. But it's them passing their costs on to us. Like, use an expression, it sounds like a whole lot of not my problem. Like, it's not my problem as a consumer that you're having to, these costs and these expectations and this are costing you more, or you want to just scrape by and make even more money on less this or that, or trying to justify this and raise the price for expectations. It's like, I'm looking for the best value and the best deal and what I think is reasonable. Like, it's a whole lot not my problem. Like, I get it. I understand why they think they need to raise the price because others have, and tinfoil hat time, but maybe part of the reason why they announce it now before a certain deal is approved, court, whatever, so that they can take one of those arguments away that our games are cheaper and we have Game Pass. Maybe they can say, see, we have our games, you can buy them at the same price as everybody else, and we have Game Pass as an alternative. That's a value proposition. Like, maybe that plays in part, but me, like, I'm just against it in general. And I think this is going to lead to more people that are, the hashtag never buy day one type folks. There's a large contingent of people like that who wait till games go on sale. You mentioned the Quarry earlier. I loved it. I bought it full price because I love horror games and I love Supermassive's work in general. But man, I wish I had waited a couple weeks because literally not long after I bought it, that sucker dropped $30, like from 70 to like 40, and then it's like dropped even more since then. And it's just like that fear of missing out, FOMO, and all this other stuff. It's just I don't think they should raise the price. I get why they're doing it. I'm just not happy about it. But Game Pass is viable, and if you are in the Xbox ecosystem, yes, you can point to Game Pass as an option. It's just I don't know. I just think it's bad timing for them to pull this. But me and reading the press release, it kind of seemed like next gen experiences would be 70. So maybe those cross gen titles like I don't know, like a Minecraft or whatever, a new game that would be coming to Xbox One and Series X or S would be still 60, and it would only be like a Starfield or a Hellblade or a Redfall that would be 70. But I don't know, I'm just all against it in general, but I get why they're doing it, I just don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people say that you can't really use Game Pass as, you know, as an excuse or a reason why it doesn't bother you so much. And to that, I say that doesn't make any sense either, because like Microsoft offers different avenues to buy their games, right? You can subscribe to Game Pass and get a 10% discount if you want to buy them outright, or you can play via the subscription service or buy them. And to that, I say, at least you provided options. Again, I don't agree with the price increase because, look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. There is no end to price increases, right? Because everyone that raised the price to $70 this generation, why can't they do 80 next generation? Why can't they do 90 the generation after that? It doesn't end. That's the truth. Because technology is always going to get better. The game price of development is always going to increase. So we have to prepare for a future where, let's say 20 years from now, video games could cost $110, $120, right? And that's going to continue to go up. It's going to continue to go up. And I will say this, the price of, I should say the sales of games will decline. Because not a single person in the UK will buy, let's say, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at £80. It is not happening. And I loved Guardians of the Galaxy. I would not pay £80 for a game unless it's a collector's edition, right? Or like a digital deluxe with a season pass. I mean, look, I've talked about this before. Call of Duty in the UK, I think it's the same in the US. To buy Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 digitally on an Xbox Series X or S, you have to pay £80+ because you're getting the cross-gen bundle. It's a rip-off.
It's garbage.
Yeah, it's a scam. It's Activision doing something shady. We've talked about this in the past. Like, that is a very shady move. Or you're getting both versions of the game. Okay, where does that benefit me? I don't play games on an Xbox One anymore, so why should I have to pay for that version as well? It's a scam. It's a rip-off. And we're going to see these exploits throughout the years now. And yeah, I don't agree with Microsoft. That said, you've still got Game Pass, which is good. I will say this, people have mentioned the quality of Microsoft games. If you look at their games coming out in the future, they are high quality, right? You have Forza Motorsport, which is arguably the most advanced sports racing games ever made. You have Starfield, which is, you know what you're getting. It's an open world Bethesda RPG where you can visit hundreds of planets. You have Redfall, which is an arcane AAA open world third person shooter. You have Hellblade 3, or I should say Hellblade 2. You know what that looks like. It looks incredible. So, like, it's clear that they've increased the quality of the games. That doesn't mean I have to agree with the price. But that said, you can subscribe to Game Pass. Putting it out there. Like, look at it like this. I didn't subscribe to Game Pass for the first 2 years of its existence because I had most of the games in the service. I never really saw the value. Now, a few years later, I see complete value in the service to the point where I'm subscribed year round all the time. And if you're smart, you use your Microsoft reward points and get Game Pass for free. Anyway, we'll move on. And again, we'll be talking about Star Wars later in the show. If people enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And again, because I put Xbox Series S at the beginning of the title, less views, guaranteed. But hey, it's the topic. So the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, has basically been saying their piece and how they don't want Microsoft to go ahead and all that stuff. And Logan, you've been following this stuff more than me because honestly, we've been talking about this stuff for 11 months now. And I'm not going to lie, it's getting to me. I think a lot of people are getting sick of the whole Activision thing. We all want it to be over and done with. I'll let you talk about this because you know more about this than me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like those who've been following it so closely lately should just get honorary law degrees from Harvard or something at this point. It's been just non-stop, just drama and he said, she said, this regulatory body's doing this, but then there's concerns about that. I mean, it's exhausting, but it's one of the biggest deals ever. It's massive implications, so thus we grudge on. But as far as the recent developments, basically there was a piece by Politico like a week or so ago that basically said FTC has, Microsoft in their scopes and they're ready to go. Like they're like, we're going to sue to block this. They're leaning that way. And the way they could fix it is concessions, but psych, we don't actually want behavioral concessions, which is only thing that would really make sense in this scenario, but we don't actually want those. So, we're big, we're bad, we're scary, we're coming after you, court time. Let's go. It sounded like that. And then a little while later, it wasn't confirmed to be, but it certainly seemed allegedly, just thinking that out there, that it seemed kind of Microsoft spin from a piece Bloomberg that comes out and says like, look, sources who would know, it said basically that if the FTC wants to pull this and they want to try to block us, we will see them in court and we will fight tooth and claw and nail, and we will make this a long, drawn out, painful process. We are not giving up on this $68 billion deal. Like, if you're gonna take us out, you're gonna take us out kicking and screaming. We're going all in on this. And so they put out the message basically like, we will fight. And oh, by the way, we put out a 10-year deal to Sony offer. It's there. 10 years, COD, no funny business. Like, they will have new Call of Duty titles for 10 years. And then a little while later, there's another piece that comes out, this time from a rival publication, the New York Post. And it says, basically, in their reporting and sources, take it for what it is with New York Post, but they put it out there and they said that, according to people that had talked with them, there was kind of a civil war brewing in the FTC, where usually the FTC has a panel of 5. 3 of the current regime party in the presidency, so it'd be 3 Democrats during this cycle, and Republicans. But one of the Republicans had stepped aside because he felt that they weren't actually getting anything done or there wasn't meaningful dialogue, so he stepped aside. So it's technically 3-1 right now. But the one Republican was looking to vote to pass the deal. It sounds like one of the Democrats was leaning heavily towards supporting the deal as well, to where there would be a split. And according to the Post, they were saying that instead of risking an egg on the face deadlock or not being able to get anything done whatsoever because you have to pass it to move forward, that they would talk to Microsoft maybe about concessions, especially because Microsoft has good relationships with the Democratic Party, and Biden would be probably more leaning towards accepting behavioral remedies in this situation because Microsoft has a good reputation, good behavior, and it's pro union in this. So that came out. And then yesterday, an all out, just fire at will PR blitz. Um, Everybody in my basically the final battle and a big epic movie, and like all the allies show up at the end. It's like the CWA comes out, biggest tech union. They're all for it. They're like, look, if you block this, you're screwing over all attempts at trying to make unionization in the tech industry a thing. We have a powerful ally in Microsoft now. If you scuttle this deal, that hoses our chances at a lot of other things and harms workers that you claim to want to protect. So pass the deal. And they also came out with, oh yeah, by the way, Microsoft is honoring our arrangement. See, they're having a new union at ZeniMax, which they already owned. This isn't something they are acquiring. They have acquired them. They're honoring their agreements like they promised. See, they're good guys. Then the president of Microsoft, or vice president, Brad Smith, came out with this piece basically saying, like, look, this is for the best of the gaming industry. This is why we're doing it. One complainant this whole time has been Sony. They're coming at it with their own reasons and agenda. Bottom line, they are Blockbuster in this scenario, and we are Netflix. They are failing. They do not want to adapt. We are trying to adapt. They're fighting, kicking, and screaming because they don't want to have to get with the times or get lost. So that is basically what has all happened. And then today, right before we hopped on here, there was another New York Post update that President Brad Smith is having an 11th hour meeting with three Democrat chairs of the commission, Khan, and Slaughter, and I think Alvaro. I can't remember all their names. I apologize. I know Khan is the chair, though. He has apparently gone to DC to meet with them specifically and say, look, can we get this done and approved and just let this go? We can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and move on. And if that does not work, and the FTC decides to push ahead anyway, then we're looking at, okay, Microsoft has already said they'll go to war if need be in court, and that's where we'll head. So it's going to be an interesting next couple weeks to see if they get this done peacefully or is this going to go to court.
Yeah, I mean, ZeniMax unionizing looks really good to everyone, and Microsoft, going with it is, it looks good to everyone, which will reflect on other countries, because the CMA will look at that and think, okay, well, that's another good thing in Microsoft's pocket. And honestly, Microsoft have some of the best working conditions in the United States. Like they are, I think, rated like at the top of Glassdoor, which is ratings in US companies for working space and living and stuff. But yeah, hopefully that stuff all pans out. Again, we are all aware. Everyone's getting sick of it. It's a bit long in the tooth. It's been going for 11 months now, and again, Microsoft has they're worth like $1 trillion. If they fight this thing in court, they'll probably win. Putting it out there. I will say this. I know Michael Pachter on Twitter the other day said that some of the concessions could be having to put Fallout and Elder Scrolls on PlayStation. Now, I used to watch the Pack Attack on GameTrailers.com. I will say this, that's probably one of the craziest tweets I've ever seen in my... There is no snowball's chance in hell where one of the concessions has to be a game from a studio that Microsoft already owns. That isn't happening at all. Bat crap crazy. I've never seen anyone write anything like that. Like Bethesda shouldn't even come up in the conversation of concessions. Concessions should be like, okay, you put Call of Duty on PlayStation for X amount of years and all that stuff. Not, oh, by the way, can we take this random game from another developer you bought and put it on PlayStation? Not happening. Not happening. I will eat a laptop if that happens, because it's not going to happen. But yeah, hopefully that stuff will all move along and all that stuff. But yeah, Logan, have you got anything else on this topic before we move on? Because, yeah.
I mean, yeah, just one last point about the Pactor thing. Like, I think he's been pretty spot on with a bunch of stuff. To me, that, though, seems kind of. That seems outrageous. Like, to me, personally, if I was Microsoft, I would balk at that. If that was one of the concessions they had to offer, is like, yeah, by the way, like, all those Bethesda exclusives you got, we're gonna want those too. Or, oh, I mean, what's to stop them to go even further and go like, okay, who are some other people you bought recently that used to make games? Like, what wouldn't stop them from asking for Hellblade 2 to randomly become PlayStation? Because technically Hellblade was on PlayStation. Or Outer Worlds 2. Like, oh, Outer Worlds was on PlayStation, so you gotta put Outer Worlds 2 on PlayStation. Like, to me, that opens up a whole bunch of can of worms that you just don't want to get into. I think they would fight in court and say, we'll have our day in court over that, if that was one of the required concessions. But, I'm not Microsoft president, so maybe to them, just getting the $69 billion deal done, just like, okay, whatever, as long as, it's not just obscene, we'll just sign an agreement to make games playable, whatever. Like, maybe they feel that way, but to me, that seems madness.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. Again, I don't see it happening. And, one of the final things on the whole Activision Blizzard deal is that in the whole, like, filings and stuff and talking behind the scenes, like, Microsoft referred to Sony as Blockbuster, or like Blockbuster.
That was hilarious.
Now, over the next week, you're going to see lots of memes on this, guaranteed. My feed is already filled with the memes. And the thing is, they don't really have a bad point about it, because Sony's business model has not changed. Microsoft's business model has. Like, I'll put it like this. Like, Netflix had the opportunity to be bought by Blockbuster, and they didn't go with it. Blockbuster just said no, they didn't believe that the whole digital streaming thing was going to take off. And then Blockbuster got into the whole, like, delivery of DVDs and then streaming, and nobody cared at that point. And, Sony, they are stuck in the past of, like, we have to release this game on store shelves, no, not in the service or anything. Like, look at their PS Plus Now Ultra Premium thing. They don't launch their own games in there. They are willing to launch indie games in their own service, but that's it. And it's like, Game Pass is number one for a reason. Value, the amount of games you get, the content you get, the discounts, all that stuff. It's like, Game Pass is the Netflix of gaming, not because it's just like Netflix. It's because, like, it was the beginning. Like, Netflix pretty much started all these streaming services. Game Pass is doing the same for gaming. Like, Embracer Group is probably going to start their own service. Ubisoft is going to bring their thing to consoles at some point. And the list goes on. It's like, we all get it. Like, Game Pass is number one. It's number one for many reasons. It's been that way for years. And Game Pass didn't start out strong. It started with a bunch of games I already had. It was a small offering. And now it's a behemoth. It's ridiculous in how much value you get. So that was kind of funny as well. Before we move on to the final topic, I just want to say that the World of Warcraft thing. So World of Warcraft was updated not long ago to have full-on controller support. And they changed a few things in the options with the update where you could actually play with a full third-person camera now, and it has action-based combat, which is something a console would need. So you have controller support, and you have a new camera mode with actions that suit console players. And I've been theorizing some big World of Warcraft content creators have been saying that they think World of Warcraft is going to come to consoles, and they also want it to. It helps the player base grow, and honestly, it doesn't really do anything bad. And with the addition of putting proper controller support in World of Warcraft, I'm leading to believe that we're going to see World of Warcraft announced for consoles, Xbox and PlayStation in the next 6 months. Logan, I know you mentioned something. Jez from Windows Central mentioned this as well, right?
Yeah, it's funny is he had posted just a screenshot of the latest Dragon update that they've had for WoW. I'm not entirely familiar with WoW, so I don't know exactly what the update was, but one of the latest content things they had for it. And I just innocently asked enough, like in the replies, I was like, "Hey, do you think if this deal gets done, that is there a realistic chance they could port it to Xbox?" And he said, "Yeah, absolutely." Like he thought there was a reasonable chance they could because conversations he had had recently with Blizzard at the time, he had they had indicated to him that they're all in on controller support and trying to make these innovations for the gameplay. And so it wouldn't seem to be that big of a stretch to get it from having controller support on PC to eventually getting it to Xbox, especially if they acquire them. And then, it could potentially be a Xbox's equivalent to like Final Fantasy like 14 or 15, like MMO one. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um or it would be basically it could be an Xbox exclusive potentially as like, "Hey, we have our flagship MMO. We have WoW. You want to play WoW? Get an Xbox." Like or they could just go, "We want WoW everywhere," and they put it on all consoles, but I think it would be a shrewd move, assuming deal gets done, to get WoW to console and make it an Xbox exclusive. They have their MMO equivalent franchise, and like I even said, I'd definitely make it a character and check it out for the first time if they made it on console, because I'm not a PC guy, particularly gaming. I've played a few games. I have a computer that can do that, but just there's something more to me about sitting on a couch playing on my console than sitting at my desk playing on PC. So if they made it for console, I would check it out. I know a lot of other people would too.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to check it out on console, and like I tried to give MMOs on console a shot. So I tried Neverwinter Nights. I played it for maybe a week, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna put a ton of hours into this." Haven't played it since. I've gave a bunch of MMOs on Xbox a shot, and I just can't do it. Elder Scrolls Online, at least that plays like Skyrim. So if people want an MMO that has good gameplay, and you like Skyrim, that works perfectly well. I really need to put more time in it. Star Trek Online, I've put maybe 40 or 50 hours in, basically because it's a single player game. Like it has a purely single player campaign without all the MMO stuff. And I would like Star Wars, the MMO, to come over. But like World of Warcraft would be huge on console. Again, third person camera, controller support, action commands. And I've seen a lot of big World of Warcraft content creators. They want it to happen. More players just means bigger player base. Everyone wins. So again, I think that'll happen. And think about it like this: you have to pay per month to play World of Warcraft right now. What if they put that in Game Pass as well? That would be huge for Game Pass. And with all the games that you have on PC Game Pass right now, the value would be even more ridiculous. So again, I do think it'll happen. Uh, I thought Hacky Sacked in chat wrote, "Damn, I thought we were going to make the whole show without porn bots." Oh no, 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 that's never happening, unfortunately. But yeah, World of Warcraft on console, I think it'll happen. Okay, finally, we're going to be talking about Star Wars. Now, EA, they've came a long way when it comes to single player content. They're coming out with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The next Bioshock, Dragon Age, Dreadwolf, Dead Space remake, and EA have confidence in putting money into single player game, which satisfies my needs because I want single player games, and we all win because people have been telling EA for years, make single player games. And Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order came out in 2019 and proved everyone right. People will buy single player content if you make it and it's good. And it was the second best selling game of the 12-month period after it released. So you had Call of Duty #1, and you had Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and that made EA pretty much brick themselves and realize, oh wait, we can make money in single player content. So Jedi Fallen Order 2, or what I've been calling it for 2 years, has been in development since before the first game shipped. And well, the Steam page leaked last night. Now, the good news, it leaked. The bad news is they already pulled the Steam page. The good news again, I copied all the text. So I'm going to use certain terms to dodge around things. This is allegedly what's going to be in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And bear in mind, the first game was Game of the Year for me, 2019. I highly recommend people play it. The game comes out in March, so you have just enough time to play it. But anyway, this is the stuff that's allegedly, wink wink, coming to Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So the game takes place 5 years after Jedi Fallen Order. Now, there's a new bunch of Empire, villains chasing the squad from the first game. You discover new planets and familiar frontiers in the Star Wars galaxy, each with unique biomes and new things we haven't seen before. That was a big complaint with the first game, that there was very few biomes and people just wanted more. So when you have a good game that people want more of, it just proves how good it is. Master new skills and equipment and abilities. So they're going to expand on the current powers you have. In a lot of games where you start with powers, the sequel, they tend to take them away. But from the text I've got here, it kind of makes it sound like you're going to have all your powers from the first game and then get a bunch of new ones as well. Which is, if you've played RPGs or action games in the past, when a sequel comes around, I'm looking at you, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, they take away all of the abilities at the beginning of the game. Anyway, we'll move on. A lot of these abilities are going to give you new ways to roam and fight. So in the picture you may have seen, Cal Kestis actually has a pistol or blaster. Now, it looks like this is going to activate long-range combat. So in the first game, you basically had the lightsaber and your force powers. You couldn't really do anything at long range, not even throw your lightsaber. Well, it looks like the pistol is going to do that. And there are characters in the Star Wars universe that do use a pistol as well as the lightsaber. So everything's cool there. The game's going to have much larger areas than the first game and more to discover in each area. Now, I love the idea of that. I spent a lot of time playing Jedi Fallen Order. The fact that they're going to put more effort into these areas is great. Again, bigger maps is always good. The cinematic combat returns with additional force powers and abilities, new lightsaber fighting styles, creative leverage over all the new weapons and equipment, strategically, I can't speak apparently, so strategically take on expanded host of enemies. Now, one of the biggest complaints of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was that the lack of enemy types. There was maybe 4 types of stormtrooper, and a few bounty hunters and a few wild creatures, and that's it. So total, there was maybe about 10 enemy types in the first game, and it looks like they've listened. And a bunch of pre-order content for the deluxe edition actually shows that they've listened some more. So in the first game, you could choose between a bunch of different ponchos. That's all you could choose from in the first game. And Cal Kestis, hey, he's one of my favorite Star Wars characters. But the fact that you only could choose between ponchos in the first game was kind of a disappointment. Well, in the new game, he has a bunch of new attire. This thing he wears on the poster honestly looks cool in my opinion, but there's also outfits that resemble Han Solo's outfit from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And there's also a Luke Skywalker inspired outfit, which is from the end of A New Hope, where he's wearing the yellow leather jacket style thing. A bunch of stuff that looks like it's straight from the Clone Wars Jedi wear. And honestly, it looks like they've basically taken all of the things people wanted fixed from the first game, such as larger areas, more force powers, more equipment, because again, the first game you had one piece of equipment, that was your lightsaber. and just more enemy types. It looks like they've taken every aspect people wanted more of and expanded on it, and also fixing everything people wanted fixing in the first game. And honestly, as a Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order fan, I could not be more excited for this. Again, it releases in March because it leaked, and yeah, it looks like it's going to be an excellent game. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because I've been talking about this for about 7 minutes now.
Oh, I mean, take your time. I mean, I'm just euphoric for this game. Like you, it was my game of the year in 2019. I am still to this day salty. It got hosed by the Game Awards, like timing and scheduling. Got shoved into the next year and different categories and all this other stuff. Like that game is brilliant. It's one of the like five best Star Wars games. Period. It's great characters. Scratches that kind of Dark Souls itch, but not like brutally difficult and more fluid and user friendly. Like the universe, the lore, the characters, the story, just combat, exploration, everything was awesome. It's one of my favorite games ever. It's amazing. And so getting a sequel that takes all of that and takes it up another notch, and they listen to feedback and they're adding even more stuff, is absolutely incredible. One of the minor nitpicks about the first one was that you do all this exploring, yet a bunch of the rewards you get, it's just a slightly different colored poncho or lightsaber crystal or something. Sounds like maybe they're addressing that too. So that makes me really happy. And then, like, as far as the combat, I'm stoked for them to bring blasters into it. Like Jedi, like even the most revered, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, whoever uses a blaster from time to time. I mean, there are some situations a lightsaber just isn't the best choice, and so it makes sense to utilize that. You're a survivor. You're on the run from the Empire, trying to purge your kind from existence. You got to make use of what you have, and blasters are readily available. So, I think it makes sense. I can't wait to see the story continue. Cal looks like he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
In the poster, he's got these fresh scars and everything. And I'm really excited to see the Night Sister and where her storyline goes as well. And yeah, I cannot wait. I really hope that there's a pre-order that comes with all of the content instead of them just parsing them out in certain editions or certain outlets. I hate it when they do that. It always irritates me because it's like I want Luke one, and I want the Obi-Wan Kenobi inspired one, and I want the Han one. I don't want to have to juggle around through all these various outlets or editions to get them. Like, just make one edition, have them all. But overall, not wait. Shortlisted for, I presume, my game of the year for next year, one of them. And I can't wait.
Yeah, so like it looks like they've listened to all the feedback, and it does sound like the rest of the characters return, because the synopsis basically says that he has to save the people he cares about. Well, it's basically him and his crew. And yeah, I mean, it looks like Cal's been through a lot. If you played the ending, which I won't spoil for anyone, a lot of stuff happens to Cal. But yeah, the fact he's using a pistol this time around, or blaster, like, it's exciting. I love the first game. It's incredible. It's arguably one of the best Star Wars games ever made. And it looks like they basically making the sequel people wanted. And Respawn have never disappointed me, ever. Other than the fact that they won't make Titanfall 3. But outside of that, everything's looking good. And yeah, we're going to see gameplay at the Game Awards. And it looks like it's next gen only. So Xbox Series XS and PlayStation 5. Outside of that, yeah, it sounds really good. And the thing is, you can change the skins on BD1 and all that stuff. I will say this, though. The synopsis reads that, you're going to be chased to the outskirts of the galaxy by new and familiar threats. And in the teaser trailer, there was a segment set on Coruscant, and one of the biggest complaints for areas in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was that populated areas weren't really a thing. You would always land on a planet. There was nothing there. No towns, nothing. Outside of the abandoned village, there was nothing like that. So, like, hopefully, I'm getting my hopes up here. We have an area set on Coruscant where there's like, you know, city with buildings and stuff. I'm getting my hopes up here. I'm a bit giddy because, again, I love that first game. But yeah, it sounds good. We'll be getting more details in 2 days, which we'll be talking about next week on the show as well. But yeah, as a sequel, it looks like they may hit the nail on the head. It looks like they may hit everything people want fixed. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Everyone in chat's been awesome. Logan, it's been great having you on again. And yeah, again, we'll be back at the same time next week, which will also be Tuesday. I think we may be having 2 more shows before Christmas. I'm not entirely sure. I have more content coming out this week. With the whole content before Christmas thing, I am going to try and get 2 videos out a week between now and Christmas, just because I've got a bunch of stuff already made, and I couldn't post stuff last week because I had COVID and my voice sounded terrible. And, well, yeah, all that stuff fixed now. And again, I hope everyone enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week. But yeah, see you everyone. We're out.